When 5-year-old Shaniya, peacefully sleeping next to her older brother, was awakened in the middle of the night, the girl didn't understand what was happening. Of course, she recognized the man looming over her. She had seen him in the house many times, but this time, everything was different. The girl couldn't know that her mother had just sold her to a friend for a debt of $200. The entire country was following the high-profile case of the disappearance of the 5-year-old child from North Carolina, and the horrifying video that surfaced confirmed that the girl had been abducted from her own bed before enduring the most terrifying hours of her life. In 2003, Bradley Lockhart was going through an extremely difficult period in his life. 5 years prior, his beloved wife tragically passed away. She and her younger sister became victims of a triple homicide when robbers broke into their friend's house upon learning that one of the family members had received a large insurance payout. The victims were silenced with gags, and all were shot. Fortunately, 2 of them survived. After the death of his wife, Bradley single-handedly raised their children. But in 2003, he began to slowly open himself up to new relationships. At a party, he met Antoinette Davis. Their romance was very short-lived, but soon Bradley found out that Antoinette was pregnant. His joy knew no bounds when on June 14, 2004, his daughter Shaniya came into the world. The girl regularly visited her father, and since 2006, when Antoinette had financial and substance abuse problems, and Bradley had just bought a big house, Shaniya moved in with him and his other 4 children. The girl quickly became the darling of the family. She loved playing basketball with her brother and riding her scooter. She also wanted to sing in the church choir. As Bradley often had to leave for business trips, his sister helped him with raising the children. Such was the situation until 2009, when Antoinette informed Bradley that she was slowly getting back on her feet, had sorted out her financial issues, found housing, and was ready to take care of their daughter again. It seemed to him that she was speaking sincerely, and he decided to give her a chance. Nevertheless, in the early autumn of 2009, 5-year-old Shaniya moved in with her mother and her 7-year-old brother, Carlo. The family lived in a trailer park in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which was rented by Antoinette's sister, Brenda Davis. The trailer was quite cramped because Brenda, her children, and her boyfriend Jeroy Smith lived in the back room, while Antoinette and her 2 children occupied the front. Nevertheless, little Shaniya loved her mom and brother very much and was happy to live with them and her aunt. And on November 10, 2009, at 5:30 a.m., when the whole family was asleep, Brenda woke up to a noise. She thought the door of the trailer had opened. She woke her boyfriend and told him, but neither of them got up to see what was happening. They fell back asleep, but half an hour later they were woken up by Antoinette. She asked if they had seen Shaniya. Of course, they hadn't. So the mother went outside to look for her daughter. While she was outside, Shaniya's brother, Carlo, mentioned that he had seen Mono in the trailer that night. The adults clarified if the boy was sure, and he said yes. Mario Andret McNeil, known as Mono, was Brenda's ex-boyfriend. He had helped her with the first payment for the trailer rent in which she lived, and while they were dating, they spent a lot of time in the trailer. He knew Antoinette and her children, and also knew how to get inside, even if the door was locked. Therefore, Brenda didn't immediately dismiss the boy's words and tried to contact Mono, but he didn't answer. Mono's girlfriend also didn't know where he was. When Brenda and her boyfriend went outside, they noticed excrement on the trailer steps and rails. It hadn't been there the previous evening. It was both strange and frightening. Meanwhile, Antoinette returned. She said she had knocked on the doors of the other trailers, but no one had seen her daughter. Brenda advised her sister to call the police immediately, but for some reason, Antoinette hesitated. Later that same morning, about 6 hours after the incident, a car stopped at a hotel in Sanford, North Carolina, about an hour's drive north of Fayetteville. A man got out, walked into the hotel, presented his documents at the front desk, and checked into the hotel under his own name, Mario McNeil. Yes, it was Mono. He told the clerk that he was traveling with his daughter and taking her to her mother in Virginia. Surveillance cameras captured Mono returning to the parking lot, carrying a child wrapped in a blue blanket. The hotel receptionist only saw the little girl's thick, curly hair as she was bundled up. Mono didn't hide, calmly carrying the child to room 201. On his way, he encountered another guest, but this didn't seem to faze him. Shortly after, Mono went down for breakfast just as the new shift started at the hotel. He took a banana, juice, and a muffin, and carried the food back to his room. The clerk who interacted with Mono drew her shift manager's attention to him. Meanwhile, at the insistence of her sister, Antoinette called the police at 6:52 a.m. She told the operator that the girl had gone to bed as usual, and around 5 a.m., she saw her sleeping, but suddenly her daughter was missing. Antoinette added that the trailer door was closed, but Shaniya knew how to open it. 10 minutes after the call, officers arrived. They immediately began the search, questioning neighbors and bringing in search dogs. The police also noticed something that would later be identified as feces on the porch rails and steps. However, they looked as if something had been poured on them. When an officer arrived, Antoinette was holding a pot. Evidently, she had poured boiling water or liquid on the rails. In a nearby trash can, they found a blanket that Antoinette identified as hers, and her sister's boyfriend added that it had been in the living room in the trailer. It was a child's blanket, and it also had feces on it. Officers spoke with all the family members. Shaniya's brother Carlo kept looking at his aunt while answering the police's questions. He remembered when his sister went to bed but didn't recall how she left the bedroom, as Brenda and Antoinette were constantly looking at their phones and scribbling something, and overall couldn't focus on the questions. The police took them to the station. The officers went to the main office of the trailer park to view the surveillance cameras to see if they could spot the child wandering around the trailer park or any cars passing by. At 7:34 a.m., the hotel surveillance cameras captured Mono leaving room 201 and heading to the elevator with the child in his arms. He exited the hotel building through a side door. A janitor was there, picking up cigarette butts and other debris when he saw Mono. The child was covered, and the janitor assumed she was asleep. He greeted Mono, who glanced at him, turned away, and walked silently. The janitor felt something was off and tried to keep an eye on Mono, but discreetly. After putting the child in the right rear passenger seat, Mono sat in the driver's seat and lit a cigarette. The janitor continued to observe, pretending to work, as something seemed amiss. After finishing his cigarette, Mono drove up to the hotel's main entrance and went inside. He told the clerk at the front desk that it was time for him to hit the road and take his daughter to her mother, asking for his deposit back. After receiving the deposit, the man left through the main entrance and got into his car at 7:40 a.m., then turned left onto the highway. Phone records showed that around 7:49 a.m. the same morning, Mono sent a message to Brenda, apparently noticing her attempts to reach out to him. At that time, she was giving her statement at the police station. Brenda and Mono exchanged several messages. Brenda wanted to know what he was doing at her house, but the man denied visiting her. Brenda then asked him not to message her anymore. She didn't inform the police that she was texting with Mono while at the station because she didn't want to draw any conclusions at that moment. For the same reason, she didn't mention that Shaniya's brother had seen Mono at the trailer. After the guest from room 201 checked out, the housekeeper was cleaning and found small packets containing residues of a white substance, which she showed to the clerk at the front desk. She suspected it was illegal substances. However, neither the clerks nor the hotel cleaner took any action, despite something about the guest's behavior bothering them. Only when the new day arrived and the hotel staff saw a police broadcast on the computer about the missing girl did they notice the similarity with the child the previous guest had been carrying. They immediately called the hotline. The police arrived promptly. It is often the case in such situations that the hotel cameras are not working or provide little help, but not this time. After reviewing the footage, the detectives concluded that Shaniya was indeed with Mono, and most importantly, she was still alive. As soon as the news of the child's disappearance became known, FBI agents joined the case. They focused on analyzing Mono's phone. After questioning the hotel cleaner and analyzing the ping from his phone, the FBI agents recommended that the police search for Shaniya in the area around Highway 87. Many volunteers also rushed to search for the girl. Meanwhile, forensic experts examined room 201. Although the towels had already been replaced and the trash had been taken out, the bed linen had not been changed yet. After the video from the hotel became known, in the evening of November 12th, Brenda and her boyfriend informed the police that Shaniya's brother had seen Mono in the trailer on the night the girl disappeared. Brenda explained that she hadn't revealed this earlier because she didn't want to jump to conclusions. Now, she showed the conversation with him and recalled overhearing a conversation between Antoinette and Mono after the girl's disappearance. Mono was trying to say something to Antoinette, but she replied, "I have nothing to say to you. I just want to know where the heck my child is." Then Mono said, "Fine." got into the car, and quickly drove away. Brenda began to suspect that Antoinette had lied about what she knew. The sisters had an argument and didn't speak to each other afterward. Examining the chain of events leading to Shaniya's disappearance, the police doubted Antoinette's story and called her in for questioning again. Under pressure, she claimed that her boyfriend, Clarence Coe, had abducted the girl. The police questioned him but quickly released him after reviewing the hotel video. Additionally, the man had an alibi. Finally, the mother confessed that Mono had taken the girl from the trailer. The police were perplexed. In other words, Shaniya's family didn't know where the girl had disappeared to, but now it turned out that she had been with, one could say, a longtime family friend. Questioning the woman was incredibly difficult because she was trying to change her testimony. The officers contacted Mono and asked him to come to the station. The police also found his Mitsubishi Galant, which was far from his home on Washington Drive. The police searched the car trunk and then took the car to the station. The car was subsequently examined for forensic evidence. Starting around 9:30 p.m. on the evening of November 12th, several officers interrogated Mono, hoping that he would reveal where Shaniya was. Although she had been considered missing for 2 days, the officers still hoped to find her alive. They did not handcuff him, take his phone, or detain him. On the contrary, they emphasized that he could leave at any moment. Mono admitted that he was in the trailer park after midnight on November 10th. Initially, he denied entering Brenda's trailer, seeing Shaniya, or even knowing who she was. He denied that she was in his car, as well as that he stopped with her at the hotel. He continued to deny everything, even when shown surveillance camera footage and informed that his name and address were indicated in the hotel registry. Mono evaded answers for some time, but eventually admitted that he was at the hotel with Shaniya. Suddenly, his story changed and became very strange. Allegedly, Brenda sent him a message inviting him to come and pick up Shaniya on the trailer porch. He picked up Shaniya and took her to the hotel room where he consumed drugs. Then unknown people contacted him by phone, asking him to bring Shaniya to the specified address. Mono said that he delivered the girl to these people. The tone of the interrogation became completely different when Mono suddenly claimed that he was waiting for a call to come and kill her. The officers tried to persuade him to tell more about it, but he refused. Of course, neither Brenda's nor Mono's phones had any such messages or calls from unknown people, only the correspondence that Brenda had already shown to the investigators. At the end of the interrogation, Mono was arrested on charges of kidnapping Shaniya. At that time, they did not yet know that, but upon reviewing the interrogation video, they saw that when Mono was alone in the room for questioning, he approached the outlet, sat down on the floor next to it, took out a key, and inserted it into the outlet. Then he took off his shoes and repeated the same actions. Obviously, he wanted to be electrocuted, which could indicate that Mono was in distress after his role in some heinous crime. Nevertheless, extensive searches for Shaniya continued along Highway 87. However, it was easier said than done. It is the second longest highway in the country, spanning 386,000 kilometers, essentially dividing North Carolina in half. Additionally, as the highway is actively used, repair work is constantly ongoing. But on the morning of November 13th, the district attorney informed the detectives working on the case that Mono's lawyer might have useful information for them. The attorney indeed suggested that in the course of the search, they should look for green portable toilets along the highway. However, this lead did not prove to be very helpful. Subsequently, the lawyer advised the officers to find a spot where hunters gut their game. Around 1 p.m. on November 16th, the search team found Shaniya's body partially concealed under a log in an area where deer bones lay. She was only in her underwear and appeared to be wearing a black hoodie that was much too large for her. Mono was charged with murder. Thanks to the evidence, autopsy results, and witness testimonies, the events of that fateful night when Shaniya was abducted were reconstructed. Despite living with the woman who had given him a daughter 18 months earlier, Mono continued to interact closely with other women. On the evening of November 9th, Mono drank and consumed illicit substances. He desired female companionship and began messaging multiple female acquaintances on his phone. He attempted to contact Brenda, but her phone was turned off. He then messaged another woman who also lived in the trailer park near Brenda. The woman was not opposed to keeping him company, but when he showed up at her door around 3 a.m., she had already fallen asleep and did not answer. At 3:06, he messaged her, wishing her a good night, and once again attempted to pursue Brenda. However, she was sleeping in the far room, and instead, Antoinette intercepted him. It is important to note that Mono had once lent Antoinette $200 so she could buy food and stay in a hotel with her children when she had nowhere to live. Some sources claimed the debt was related to illicit substances, but this was false. These rumors were debunked by the district attorney. However, under the influence of illegal substances, Mono lost all his nobility. He wanted something in return from Antoinette, money or female companionship, which he desperately craved. It is uncertain how the conversation unfolded, but ultimately, Antoinette sold her 5-year-old daughter to work off her debt to him. Judging from the feces found on the trailer's stairs and a blanket, something had already happened to Shaniya before Mono took her out of the trailer. Afterward, the man drove with his victim to the hotel, where he obtained what he desired once again. He then strangled her and left her body near the highway, where it was later found. Antoinette was also arrested but released on a $51,000 bond. She claimed in her defense he was only supposed to have intimacy with her, not kill her. On July 5, 2011, the man's case was brought to court. He was charged with first-degree murder, first-degree kidnapping, and, of course, sexual assault. Mono tried to challenge the accusations, arguing that he deserved some leniency because he disclosed the location of Shaniya's body. However, the hitch was likely that Mono or his attorney misjudged the situation when they shared this information with the police. Nonetheless, on April 8, 2013, Mono was offered a deal: plead guilty to first-degree murder and serve life in prison without the possibility of parole. Mono refused and went to trial. During the trial, a forensic expert testified that he found a small bruise on Shaniya's left cheek, wounds on intimate parts of her body, and 2 abrasions on the upper thighs. 2 abrasions on the upper inner thighs matched the elastic of the underwear she was wearing. The cause of death was asphyxiation. Although no semen was found, other evidence, surveillance camera footage, phone records, and even soil samples linked the man to the crime scene. On May 23, 2013, the jury found Mono guilty of first-degree murder and several other charges except for 1 count related to assault. During the sentencing hearing, Mono did not allow any of his relatives to speak on his behalf. He explained that it would only matter if he could count on being released, but now the choice was between life imprisonment and the ultimate punishment. On May 29, 2013, the jury recommended the death penalty for Mono. The court sentenced him to death for first-degree murder and 58 to 72 years for all other charges. On July 6, 2011, Antoinette was rearrested and charged with first-degree murder in addition to the already presented charges, including human trafficking and kidnapping. On October 18, 2013, she reached a plea deal. Its essence was that Antoinette did not admit guilt, but acknowledged that there was sufficient evidence to prove her culpability for second-degree murder. As part of the deal, the first-degree assault charge against her was dropped. She was sentenced to imprisonment for a term of 17 to 21 years. Therefore, she could be released as early as 2027. In court, she apologized to Bradley, the father of her daughter. Antoinette stated that she had done everything possible for her children. "I never claimed to be a perfect mother, but I was a good mother. I did what I had to do to provide for them. I did everything to ensure they were okay. No one helped me," she said. The judge disagreed with her. He stated that she could have saved her daughter's life, but she didn't. "You had the time, opportunity, and means to save her, and you didn't do it. You are not a good mother. This should not have happened," he said. Additionally, relatives were always ready to help her, as was Bradley. The judge suggested that she work with a psychologist during her imprisonment. Another shocking fact in this story is that when Antoinette gave her daughter to Mono, she was expecting another child. Of course, the child was taken by Child Services. In turn, Bradley stated that he still mourned his daughter, but had long forgiven Antoinette, as well as Shaniya. He told her, "Perhaps you can use this time to delve into yourself and help others by sharing your story." The man said that someday, perhaps, he could talk to Antoinette and find out what was going on in her mind. But not now. He hoped that Shaniya's story would help save other children. Unfortunately, this was not the last tragedy in the man's family. Due to a terrible turn of events, Shaniya's older half-brother from her father's side, Chavez Lockhart, was shot on May 25, 2017. He was in a car when he was attacked by 18 and 17-year-old killers. Chavez was only 20 years old. He was buried next to his sister. Approximately a month before her disappearance, The police stormed Antoinette's house. They were interested in illegal substances. They were obliged to report to the child services that they visited the house in connection with the illegal substances and that there were children present. Then the girl would have been immediately sent to live with her father, where she would have been safe. However, they chose not to follow the protocol. Furthermore, the school where Shaniya attended daycare was concerned about the well-being of Antoinette's children, but no one took any action. As a result, Shaniya lost her life when her mother sold not only her body, but also her innocence, freedom, and life for a paltry debt. Immediately after the sentencing, Mono filed an appeal, but it was not successful. And that means that someday the officers will walk down a long corridor, open the door to Mario's cell, handcuff him, and take him to a small room no bigger than the hotel room where he took Shaniya. Then they will lay him down, restrain him, deprive him of the ability to move, to resist, just as Shaniya had none of this when he heartlessly took her life. He will receive an injection. He will struggle, resist, losing his last strength, just as Shaniya did before she perished. But just as she couldn't escape, her killer won't see freedom either. And perhaps the last thing he will see, closing his eyes, will be her face.